Hi there, welcome to the One Geek. It is I, Saz, and we're here with a continuation of our Commodore Amiga 1200 restoration project. Now the great news is that the recapping has been done on the board, and Retro Passion have sent back the board to me, which is going to be some good stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up the protection case here, and we're going to take a look at the capacitors and see the comparison between the old and the new before we start talking about what we're going to do later. And of course, we'll get the Amiga back to at least a stock level. And as you may remember from last time, all you have to do is get the tabs off the plate and wiggle the board free so that you get to look at the board underneath. We will not be using that from now on because there are going to be some extra bits put on there. But let's have a quick look at how the changes to the capacitors has. Just put a diagram here, and you may notice straight away there's those two rather large blue ones in the old capacitor section have completely not disappeared. Now these, I believe, are polymer capacitors, which mean they don't have any liquid in them, so they should last a pretty damn long time. As you remember, I decided that I was going to go for a more expensive thing from Retro Passion, simply because I wanted to make sure that this Amiga would last the rest of its lifetime. Other bits might go on it, which we might be able to improve later, but the one thing that we want to make sure is that the capacitors don't leak and ruin the board. And I think we've succeeded really nice on that one. So all we need to do now is take a look at all the different bits and pieces that we have to do to put this back together. As you can see, I'm having a good look at all the different ones, showing all the capacitors off here, but in the end, it's been a good job, it's done. So really, the moral of the story here is if you need to get your capacitors done and you don't have the skill, get it from someone who knows how to do it. So the first job of the day is to get the motherboard seated back onto the base plate, or the plastic out coating, whatever you want to call it, the outer casing should I say. We just want to make sure that it all fits in nicely, and then there are several screws that go in from the motherboard to make sure that it gets passed through. But you just want to make sure that everything is seated nicely first before you start looking at the screws. Now the other thing to take into account as well is that there are different size screws that come with this whole thing, and the one thing that I felt was to use the smaller screws to put the board in. There has been a lot of times where people have put too long of screws in and it's either cracked the outer casing or done some damage, so forth. So all I'm going to do is make sure that those go in. But first and foremost, I want to try put in the LED strip. Now you'll find that some people may see automatically that I have put this in upside down, but I do correct myself. As you can see, the wires are facing downwards when they should actually be facing upwards, and that's the easiest way to find out, so you don't make the same mistake I do. The problem was, it was very hard to actually decide, so I just kind of had to guess at it, and I guessed wrong the first time round. So just remember that the wires kind of go up towards the back of the case rather than downwards, or they start messing around with the keyboard. Just to take a quick mental note of what's happening there, just want to make sure that I know which cord goes in where. Okay, this is where things get a little bit confusing. I heard it rattle inside the disk drive as I was trying to put it together, and just giving it a little quick shake, this little copper square came out. It looks like the glue's come undone on it, and I wasn't exactly sure where it came from, and I was a bit worried that this might actually cause a problem with the disk drive. Now, whilst that's been in there rattling around, the disk drive seems to have been working before I sent the board off to be recapped. So it's a bit of a puzzle as whether it's a needed item, whether I need to re-glue it back, or what needs to be done here. So the only thing I could do is start to experiment. I took the screws off, not knowing if I needed to take the screws off or not, but they've hopefully come off sooner or later. And once I've opened that, I found that there's some little catches on the top, which you just used just a little metal pick, which I was using my ROM remover to help just pull the lid off. And then you can see on the inside. And sooner or later, you will get to see that this little copper part looks like it's the same as the copper part that's on here, which I haven't put in front of the camera yet, but you will see very shortly, as long as I get my bottom into gear. It seems to be going on top of the head mount. It might be a counterweight for the head mount, but there's already one there, so I'm wondering if two have been stuck on by accident. If not, I wonder if you guys would go there. You could just about see it there. And now what I'm doing now is I'm testing to make sure that the mechanism seems to be working okay, and the head reader is going up against. And I'm trying to wonder if that was supposed to be glued to that, and that's what's come off to give it some extra weight, or if it went anywhere else. If anybody's got any ideas as to what's happened there and what I can do to repair it, please pop something down in the comment section. I'll see if I can make a repair done on that as soon as possible. But at the end of the day, it didn't seem to affect it, so it's gone into the parts box just to make sure. So with that mystery unsolved, it just felt best to just see if the board would work, or the disk drive would work with the board. So it's just a question of putting all the cables back together and then screwing back onto the mounts. Now this was a little bit trickier than I thought. It was trying to work out which was the best way to do things. The only issue that I had was that, really, at the end of the day, was that I'd put that cable, as I point there, that goes into the pin 0. I've worked out the pin 0 was the red side of the cable. So I put that on correctly on that side. What I didn't do was put it correctly into the drive. That way that red line should be actually on the other side of the drive, so that the pin is facing correctly. Now what happens is that when you do turn the machine on, what will happen is the floppy drive will just remain on, and that is a good indicator that you've got something the wrong way round, effectively. But these sort of things test you. You've got to learn from your mistakes, so to speak. But impressively, managed to get it down, managed to get it locked into the board fairly well, and with a little bit of wangling, managed to get the board all together working with the floppy drive. So now it's time to return the keyboard to its slot. As you remember, this white thing has a little pull-up switch that you need to push back down once you're done to make it sure it's securing. And the other thing is to make sure that you get it seated into the tabs in the board, which I didn't do here. But I wasn't really that concerned about it just then, because I really needed to test the drive to make sure that everything was working, because I was still worried about that copper piece that had come out. And it didn't help that the lights work, but sooner or later you work these things out, don't you? Of course, then it's time to make sure the LED is connected, and as you see there, I suddenly work out that the LED in the keyboard, it becomes a little bit of a hassle. I try to fit everything together, but I do notice that there is a switch on there that has a little white dot in it, which kind of helps you relay which way the pin goes in. However, as you may notice there, I've realised that it's not really seating itself correctly, because the wires seem to be off. As you can see, the wires are now bending in over the keyboard, which didn't seem right, and it just came to the conclusion that perhaps it's supposed to bend the other way, and that I got it upside down. So naturally, first thing I did was try several times until I realised, yes, okay, maybe I'm going to have to take it off and rotate it back around again. So once around the right way round, you notice the wires go in, everything's fine. So just make sure that when you do refit your LEDs, that the wire, or where the wires come in from the rear end, so that they don't start messing around with the board. However, another issue suddenly turns up, which is me getting everything round and connected around the keyboard, which I'm just wangling around now. And now, of course, it's time to test the box, and it works nicely as it switches on. And let's test that disk drive to see if it works. We'll go back to using Alien Breed to see if that works. And you can see me nervously waiting in the background there. See if we work. Come on, anytime soon now. Let's not panic. The drive is shifting though, so there we go. And it's asking. Accessing the disk, and it's starting to load stuff up. So hopefully that bronze piece that fell out hasn't really upset the apple cart. But once again, if anybody has an idea of where it goes and how I stick it back, please let me know. I'll be more than happy to listen to your advice and see about taking it back out and repairing it again. So that's pretty much it. We've managed to get our machine back to stock. So the next part of the project is to look at making it a little bit more special. And the one thing I'm going to do is look at are the chips. Now, you've got to be very careful with the chips. I've actually did buy some 3.1 chips, and I broke the pins on it trying to get them in because they didn't seem to fit the cradle. So I had to try bend the pins back in, and I bent them a little bit too far, and all things broke. So I've had to order some new pins, but this time I did the 3.1.4 pins, which will include the OS as well, which will help me no end in making sure that all the new bits and pieces that I have intending to put on this machine will be able to do that. However, all I'm going to say is thanks for watching. If you like what you like, press a like button. If you dislike what you dislike, press a dislike button. But please pop something down in the comment section to let me know how I can improve my content for you. If you like what you see, why not press that subscribe button? And if you super duper like it, why not press that bell icon so you get updated every time I upload new content to YouTube. All that remains for me to say is thanks very much. Happy retro gaming. Bye bye.